Hello, everyone, and book lovers alike. Welcome to another author interview here in Reader's Magnet. We're also streaming live in our Reader's Magnet Facebook page and Reader's Magnet YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to be updated. Today, we have one of our featured author, Jenny Ferns, author of Ripple Effect Because of the War. Hi, Jenny. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. Glad
That's
to
good to
meet you.
I'm glad to meet you too. I'm excited for this conversation. So let's start with your book. Can you show it to us?
Okay.
All
Ripple
right.
effect because of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And
Good, good.
it's the war in England, the Second World
Mm-hmm.
War, before, during, and after.
Oh, wow. And that you also have a very colorful cover. Very interesting.
Mhm.
And I wanted to talk about first yourself. I want us to I want our viewers to know a little about yourself.
Okay.
So do you
Well,
want to share?
sure. My name's Jenny Ferns, and I grew up in England. You can probably tell from my accent. And I moved to Canada for many years and raised my family there. And then I moved to Florida to retire. And
Mm-hmm.
my background was as a biologist. I taught high school. I was a psychologist, so I got to know the inside of a lot of people's minds and hearts. And
Wow.
then when I retired, I had time, and I decided that I wanted to write a memoir because I had a very interesting life traveling around the world and a lot of issues that I wanted to talk about. Then I discovered, as I was starting to write it, that there were some people who were still alive that might not be too happy about what I said about them. And there were
Mm-hmm.
some secrets and skeletons in the closet that might start rattling and haunt me. So I decided that a memoir was too close to the bone, as it were. So I decided to create a fictional story
Mm-hmm.
using some of the ideas and some of the facts and some of the memories and some of the personalities, but changing them in order to make it more entertaining, to make the bad guys worse than they were, make the good guys better than they were, and to
Uh-huh.
create more drama.
Right. That's a very interesting way of, coming up with a story and how did you finally write the book? Is that your first book?
Well, as a child, as a budding biologist, I did write uh, a nature diary, but that was just a kiddie thing. So really, this is my second book. This is my first book
Oh,
published to the world.
first published book. Wow, that's amazing. That's something to be celebrated.
Oh yeah,
It's a milestone. People will always remember you with your book. And that's one way for them to that's one way for you to leave your legacy to the world. So you mentioned that you wrote the book because you wanted to share your experience about the world war that happened. So is there any other reason aside from that, why
sure.
you wrote the book?
Um, yes, well, there are several themes within the book that I wanted to address that were part of my life and part of the life of people growing up during that time. So, a lot of people in the United States and maybe in other parts of the world don't know what it was like in England before, during, and after the war, and what it was like um, growing up as a family, growing up with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to explain, number one, how women became emboldened, became strong because of the war. Because the guys went to war to fight. Then in those days, the women didn't fight. The women
Mm-hmm.
were in, support roles, like picking up the dead bodies in the street. They worked in the farms because the farm laborers had to go to work. They worked in the munition factories. They had to drive drive trucks and ambulances and do all kinds of things that they would never have been allowed to do before or were never available because the men
Mm-hmm.
all that. So really, women became very strongly liberated. Um,
Mhm.
uh, they became independent, and they had to manage without men. So that was a big thing. And then after when the war was over, and the men came back, then there was some problems because the women didn't want to give up their independence, and the men didn't weren't quite adjusted to the way women had changed. So there was some stress around that. Some other
Well,
issues I wanted to address was also um, the fact that people in any war, as in England in the Second World War, people in any war, the people have PTSD. They get traumatized by the war,
mhm.
and this is relevant now and forever. Wherever there's war in any country, the soldiers come home with PTSD, and it causes a huge problem for them and for the people around them. So that one character in my book, the father in this family, came home with PTSD, and he had to adjust to normal life, and his wife and children had to adjust to that, and of course there were problems. And in this case, the the person who came home from the war developed alcoholism and depression and almost committed suicide, was violent, and the family
Mhm.
had to deal with that. And in the story, and this is where my psychology background came in the story, I showed how he actually found some treatment and found some hope and found some ability to deal with his trauma, and the family also began to adjust. Instead of falling apart, they began to reconnect. And
Mhm.
then another issue that I wanted to address in the book was about um, children who were born out of wedlock, illegitimate children who were born
Mhm.
because the women were sleeping with the soldiers, and there wasn't good contraception, and children were conceived. And in this case, there was a child who was born to an unwed mother and was adopted by into a family with the family in the
Mhm.
story, but she didn't know she was adopted, and so later
Wow.
on, her mother showed up. So that's a theme that is current, you know, that children are adopted, and then what do they do when they're adopted, when their biological mother shows up? So this caused a lot of stress and turmoil within the
Mhm.
family. But those are the main things that really I wanted to deal with that are not too far away from the truth in my own family. So
Exactly. And those situations are still present in the current times, in present times,
that's
right?
right.
There's
Just because I was writing about something that happened in the Second World War, which is a long time ago, I was born
mhm.
right after the war. That's 70 odd years ago. Um, but wars are the same, and illegitimacy is the same, PTSD
Right.
is the same. But in my story, it's probably a little bit more colorful and maybe a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Who don't know the everyday life of living in England and what the people there went through.
It's just a different setting in your story, but
Correct.
same issue, same concern, same problems and challenges that we encounter even in present times, right? So for those who are watching us live, you can grab a copy of Jenny's book, Ripple Effect Because of the War, available in Amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, and in her website www.jenniferenswriter.com. There you go, everyone. Ripple Effect Because of the War. Follow her as well in her Facebook page and other social media platform. So, Jenny, you mentioned a lot of issues and concern that you talked about in your book. I wanted to know what is the genre of your book with all of those ideas.
Well, I put primarily it's historical fiction because it's
Mm-hmm.
set in that particular time, and I put it as women's fiction and family relationships and possibly mental health. But
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little bit of romance in there, wartime romance. There's a little bit of
Right.
it's not all doom and gloom. There's some fun stuff. There's some love and all of that.
Right. A little light in the dark stories,
It
that would
happens.
make it a lot interesting. So I
Sure.
wanted to know, what was the most surprising thing you learned in writing the book?
The most surprising thing, what I found was that I would be dreaming about these characters, and because they weren't real people, but in my dreams and in my writing, they became real, and I'd have to relate to them as if they were real. And in a way,
Mhm.
um, they began to have conversations with me. I
That's
wanted,
cute.
and I wanted them to do something and to say something, and they would say, "No, I'm not doing that."
Oh my, you really build a connection to your character. It's as if they're
As a
real person.
character, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if you actually get a chance to talk or have coffee with one of your characters, who would it be?
Oh, um, I love them all. Um, Probably the mother in this because she's
Mhm,
one of the primary characters. There
mhm.
are several primary characters, but she went through a lot of crap and stress and how she dealt with that. That would be interesting. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm sure you can relate to the mother, right?
Oh yeah, I can relate to the mother part.
It,
And also the daughter, the
mhm.
daughter who was adopted and how what it was like for her to suddenly discover that who she thought was her mother wasn't her mother.
Wow, that's something that a lot of people can relate as well. Not just you, not just me, but
Right.
everyone. We encounter those issues, those challenges in our day to day life,
Right.
especially now that a lot of people are experiencing trauma, not just because of the war, but in you know
Also,
daily lives.
in daily life, there's trauma in daily life, and
Right.
that comes over in the story as well. So
Now, I
it's a
wanted to know.
family. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Well, I wanted to know, what part of the book did you have the hardest time to write?
Um, Probably the romantic part that was became quite sensuous. I think it
Really?
was that was really opening up my privacy a little bit to put that
Hmm.
down on paper.
Wow. Wow. But what is the easiest part?
The easiest part,
Do you think everything?
no, the easiest part was the descriptions of everyday life because it was very familiar to me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in that time, post-war England, well, it's particularly in the place where I lived, it wasn't as advanced economically as it is in the United States or some other places. So the homes were fueled by coal. You'd have a bath once a week. You didn't have showers. You didn't have fridges. Um, the kids were able to roam around and on bicycles in the countryside very free. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of lifestyle is was something that maybe some people didn't
Yeah.
about
Experience.
don't
Yeah.
exist. Yeah,
I agree. I agree. There's a lot of, restriction nowadays, especially with the COVID happened. We cannot go out right away. There's still few restrictions here and there. We
and the
can't go
children.
biking.
Yeah, the children. I think the parents are very paranoid and very overprotective of their children,
I
and
agree.
they can't just go out and play, and they don't want to go out and play. They want to be locked to their computers and phones and things. So it's,
Definitely.
it's not. It's just a
That's
different world now.
Yeah, I can totally agree. And I can relate. Most of the kids nowadays just, stay indoors, which is a good thing, but, they need to go out because they have to socialize with other kids as well.
And COVID really put a dent on all of that, and I'm sure there's a lot of depression from people
Right.
that don't interact with people.
It was a very hard time, but with your book, I'm sure a lot of people will rediscover how it feels to be free again, roaming around the farm, biking, and as you say, doing a little those day-to-day lives that we were no longer experiencing because of the pandemic and everything.
Okay,
Well, thank you so much for the time, Jenny. It was a very intuitive talk. I learned a lot.
you did.
And I did. It was
It's
something.
fun book too. It's an interesting book.
Yes,
It's touching a different culture.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. And it's a view from the past, right?
correct.
Not everyone was able to experience what you had, but with your book, we get a glimpse on what happened before. So thank you for writing the book and for sharing it to us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There you there
And
you go, everyone.
thank Reader's Magnet for inviting me. Thank you.
Of course, we love to have you. There you go, everyone. Jenny Ferns, author of Love Has a Voice. You grab a copy of Jenny's. Oh, I'm sorry, author of Ripple Effect because of the war,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
like that.
available.
Well, I like that other title too.
Oh, that was for my other author. Anyway, thank you so much for the time, Jenny. You can grab a copy of Jenny's book available in Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and in her website, www.jenniferenswriter.com. Follow her in Facebook and other social media platforms as well. Jenny, thank you, and you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
And
Bye
as
bye.
we say here in Reader's Magnet, we share your story with the world. Good day, everyone.